My name is Michael. I'm 38 and an architect from Seattle. My marriage to Emily seemed perfect until one rainy evening when I discovered her cheating on me with my best friend, Trevor. But I'm not one to give up. This is a story of deception, cunning, and just retribution. Listen to the end. My name's Michael. I'm 38, an architect living just outside Seattle, where the rain's a constant companion and the skyline's a mix of glass towers and evergreen hills. For years, my life with Emily felt like a blueprint I'd drafted myself. Solid, dependable, beautiful in its simplicity. We had a cozy house with a wraparound porch, a dog named Jasper who'd greet me at the door, and quiet evenings sipping wine by the fireplace. I'd sketch building designs while she'd read some novel, her feet tucked under a blanket. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. At least that's what I thought. Lately, though, cracks started showing. Not the kind you'd notice right away. More like hairline fractures in a foundation, easy to ignore until the whole structure shifts. Emily began staying late at her marketing job, blaming deadlines I never questioned. Her phone buzzed more than usual, and when I'd glance over, she'd tilt the screen away, muttering something about spam texts. She'd laugh it off, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Then there was Trevor, my best friend since our college days at UW, the guy who'd been my wingman through late-night study sessions and bar crawls. He started dodging our Friday beers, saying he was swamped with his real estate gigs. I'd call. He'd text back hours later with excuses that didn't add up. I told myself it was nothing. People drift, right? Life gets busy. But doubt's a funny thing. It creeps in slow, then digs its claws in deep. I'd catch Emily smiling at her phone in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months, her fingers tapping out replies she'd never share. One night, I asked about her day, just casual small talk over dinner, and she snapped, "Why do you always need to know everything?" Her tone stung, sharp and defensive, like I'd crossed some line I didn't even see. I let it go, but that moment stuck with me, replaying in my head like a bad song on loop. Trevor wasn't much better. The last time we met up, he barely looked me in the eye, fidgeting with his keys and changing the subject every time I mentioned Emily. "You two still good?" he'd asked once, voice tight, and I'd nodded oblivious. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. It was mid-March, the kind of damp, gray week that makes Seattle feel like it's holding its breath. I've been working on a new project, a sleek office building downtown, and my days were long, my nights restless. Emily had been distant, her kisses perfunctory, her excuses piling up. "Client dinner," she'd say, or "team's working late again." I'd nod, pretending it didn't gnaw at me. Trevor, meanwhile, hadn't returned my last two calls. I figured he was chasing some big sale, or maybe he'd met someone new and didn't want to jinx it by telling me. We'd always shared everything. First dates, breakups, dumb bets over football games. Now it was radio silence. That Friday, I decided to shake things up. The rain was relentless, drumming against my office window as I packed up early. I texted Emily I'd be home by 6. Maybe we could order takeout and watch a movie, something to bridge the gap growing between us. No reply. Typical lately. On a whim, I called Trevor, thinking I'd swing by his place after, drag him out for a drink like old times. Straight to voicemail. Fine, I thought. I'd surprise them both. Emily with dinner, Trevor with a six-pack and a guilt trip for ghosting me. I grabbed my coat, locked up, and headed into the storm. Driving home, the wipers slashed through sheets of rain, headlights bouncing off wet pavement. My gut churned, a mix of hope and unease I couldn't shake. Something felt off, like the air before a lightning strike. I turned onto our street, the house coming into view, lights on, her car in the driveway. Good, she was home. But then I saw it. Trevor's black Jeep parked a few houses down, half hidden by a row of cedars. My stomach dropped. He never parked there. Why would he? I pulled up slow, killed the engine, and sat there, rain hammering the roof, my mind racing. Maybe he'd stop by to see me. Maybe it was nothing. I stepped out, the cold biting through my jacket, and made my way to the porch. The living room curtains were drawn, but a faint glow leaked through. Jasper didn't bark. Odd, since he always heard my car. I turned the key quietly, easing the door open. The house was still, too still, except for a murmur drifting from upstairs. My boots left wet prints on the hardwood as I climbed the steps, each one creaking under my weight. The voices grew clearer, hers soft and laughing, and his low and familiar. My chest tightened. I reached the bedroom door, cracked just enough to see inside, and froze. There they were, Emily and Trevor, tangled in each other, oblivious to the world collapsing around me. The rain pounded the house like it was trying to drown out what I'd just seen, but nothing could mute the image burned into my skull. Emily, my wife of 8 years, wrapped in Trevor's arms on our bed. My best friend since college, the guy who'd stood by me when I proposed to her, who'd toasted us at our wedding. They didn't hear me, didn't see me standing there in the doorway, my breath caught in my throat, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Her laughter, soft, intimate, cut deeper than any knife. His hands, tracing her back like he owned her, made my stomach churn. I wanted to scream, to charge in and tear them apart, but something colder took over. Rage, yes, but sharper, more focused. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I backed away, silent as a shadow, each step down the stairs a test of willpower. My heart hammered, a dull roar in my ears, but my mind was already spinning, piecing together the how and why. How long had this been going on? How many lies had I swallowed? The late nights, the dodge calls, the way Trevor's grin faltered when I'd mention her name. It all clicked, a puzzle I'd been too blind to solve. I slipped out the front door, Jasper still nowhere in sight, probably locked in the garage to keep him quiet. The rain soaked me through as I stood on the porch, staring at Trevor's Jeep through the haze. I could slash the tires, key the paint, let them know I knew. But that was too easy, too quick. They didn't deserve a tantrum. They deserved a reckoning. I drove off, the wipers slashing at the downpour, my knuckles white on the wheel. I didn't go far, just a few blocks to a dark stretch of road where I could park and think. The betrayal gnawed at me, a raw, jagged thing, but I forced it down, channeling it into something useful. If they thought they could play me for a fool, they were wrong. I'd spent years designing buildings, measuring angles, anticipating stress points, building things to last. Now I'd build something else, a plan to take them apart, piece by piece, without ever raising my voice. I pulled out my phone, hands trembling, and started scrolling through old texts. Hers is looking for anything I'd missed. A vague meeting here, a busy night there. Clues I'd ignored because I trusted them. Back home, I waited until Trevor's Jeep was gone. 11:47 p.m., the timestamp seared into my memory. I walked in like nothing had happened, dripping wet, a fake smile plastered on my face. Emily was in the kitchen, hair mussed, wearing a robe I'd bought her last Christmas. "You're early," she said, startled, her voice a little too high. "Meeting got canceled." I lied, watching her eyes flicker. "Rough night out there, huh?" She nodded, busying herself with a glass of water, avoiding my gaze. I wanted to grab her, demand answers, but I played along. "Where's Jasper?" I asked casual. "Oh, I put him in the garage. Didn't want him tracking mud," she said too quick. Another lie. I let it slide, kissed her cheek, cold, mechanical, and said I was beat, heading upstairs to shower off the rain and the disgust. That night, I lay in bed next to her, wide awake, her soft breathing a mockery of the life we'd had. She didn't know I'd seen, didn't know I was already plotting. The next morning, I started small. I synced her phone to my laptop while she showered, pulling every text, every call log. There they were, dozens of messages to Trevor, flirty at first, then brazen. "Miss you already," she'd written 2 days ago. "Can't wait to see you," from him, last week. My jaw tightened, but I kept going, saving screenshots, building a file. I dug through her email next. Nothing obvious, but a receipt for a hotel downtown caught my eye. 2 months back, a night she'd said she was at a team retreat. The pieces fit too well. I saw Trevor a few days later, testing the waters. I called him up, voice steady, and suggested coffee. He hesitated, longer than he should have, then agreed. We met at a diner near Pike Place, the kind of noisy spot where secrets drown in clatter. He looked twitchy, his usual swagger gone, stirring his coffee like it had wronged him. "How's work?" I asked, leaning back, studying him. "Fine, busy," he mumbled, eyes on the table. "Emily keeping you up with her late nights?" I tossed it out light, but his spoon froze mid-stir. Yeah, she's been slammed," he said, forcing a laugh. "Liar." I smiled, sipped my coffee, and let him squirm. He didn't know I was onto him, didn't know I'd already snapped a photo of his Jeep outside a bar he'd claimed he never went to the night before, same night Emily was working late. Every lie fueled me. I bought a cheap burner phone, started tailing them when I could, discreet, just enough to catch glimpses. A quick hug outside her office, a late-night meet-up at that same hotel. I recorded what I could, blurry footage through rain-streaked windows, their voices faint but damning. I wasn't some PI, but I didn't need to be. They were sloppy, cocky, thinking I'd never suspect. Each night, I'd come home, kiss her hello, ask about her day, and she'd spin more stories while I nodded, filing it all away. The file grew. Photos, texts, timestamps, a dossier of their betrayal. I wasn't ready to strike yet. Not until I had enough to bury them, to make sure they couldn't talk their way out. The rain kept falling, a steady drumbeat to my resolve. They'd taken everything, my trust, my peace, my past. But I'd take it back, and more. They'd see soon enough what happens when you cross a man who knows how to build, and how to break. The days blurred into weeks, each one a tightrope walk between pretending and plotting. I'd wake up next to Emily, her arm draped over me like nothing had changed, and I'd force a smile, choking down the bile that rose every time she said, "I love you." She didn't know I'd seen her with Trevor, didn't know I'd turned our home into a quiet battlefield. My laptop hummed late into the night, a growing archive of their lies. Texts, photos, grainy videos from my burner phone. I had enough to ruin them already, but I wanted more. I wanted it airtight, undeniable, a wrecking ball they couldn't dodge. Revenge isn't loud, it's precise, and I was sharpening the blade. I kept up the act, playing the oblivious husband. "How's the team holding up?" I'd ask over breakfast, watching her spin tales about late-night brainstorming sessions. "Exhausted, but we're pushing through," she'd say, her smile too practiced, her eyes sliding past mine. I'd nod, sip my coffee, and log it. Another lie to cross-check. Trevor was trickier. He'd gone from dodging me to overcompensating, texting random memes, or asking about my projects like we were still buddies. I played along, keeping him close, letting him think he was safe. The more comfortable they got, the sloppier they'd be. I upped my game. I borrowed a friend's car, a beat-up sedan Trevor wouldn't recognize, and tailed them when I could. One night, I caught them in a dive bar across town, tucked in a corner booth, her hand on his knee. I snapped photos through the window, rain streaking the glass, their laughter faint but clear. Another time, I followed Trevor from his office to a florist, watched him buy roses, read her favorite. He drove straight to our house while I was at a site visit. I circled back later, found the petals scattered on our kitchen counter, a vase she claimed was from a client. The audacity fueled me. They weren't just betraying me, they were mocking me in my own home. The evidence piled up, but I needed leverage, something personal to twist the knife. I remember Trevor's big talk about a real estate deal he'd been chasing, a waterfront property that could make his career. He'd bragged about it months ago, said it was in the bag. I dug into it, calling a favor with a city planner I'd worked with. Turns out, Trevor had fudged some paperwork, greased a few palms to seal the deal. Shady, but not enough to sink him, yet. I filed that away, a card to play later. For Emily, it was simpler. Her firm had a strict no-fraternization policy. An affair with a client's rep, like Trevor, could cost her job. I just needed proof they crossed that line. I decided to rattle them, test their nerves. I invited Trevor over for dinner, casual-like, saying I missed the old days. Emily's eyes widened when I mentioned it, but she recovered fast, chirping, "That'll be fun." The night came, and I cooked steak, potatoes, the works, watching them squirm across the table. Trevor showed up late, tie loose, reeking of cologne I'd never known him to wear. Emily fussed with her hair, her laugh too loud, her glances at him too quick. I kept it light, dropping bait. "You two seem busy lately. Ever run into each other at those late-night spots?" Trevor choked on his wine, coughing hard, while Emily's fork froze midair. No, just work stuff," he muttered, wiping his mouth. "Yeah, different circles," she added too fast. I smiled, refilled their glasses, and let the silence stretch. They were cracking, and I hadn't even pushed. Later, I accidentally left my phone on the counter. A text from fake contact. "Saw Trevor at the Marriott last night. You good?" Blinking on the screen. Emily saw it, her face paling, and she excused herself to the bathroom. Trevor fidgeted, checking his watch, mumbling about an early meeting. I walked him out, clapped his shoulder, and said, "Good to see you, man. Let's not wait so long next time." He nodded, eyes darting, and peeled out of the driveway like he'd seen a ghost. Back inside, Emily was scrubbing dishes, hands shaky. "Everything okay?" I asked, leaning in the doorway. "Fine," she snapped, then softened. "Just tired." I didn't buy it, but I let her stew. The real move came a week later. Our annual friends party was coming up. 20 people, good food, a slideshow of memories I'd always put together. Perfect cover. I've been dropping hints about big news to mutual friends, letting word trickle back to Emily and Trevor. She started hovering, asking what I was planning. He called twice, fishing for details. I kept it vague, smiling, watching him sweat. The slideshow was my weapon, old photos of us mixed with shots of them I'd taken. The bar, the hotel, her car parked at his place. I'd end it with a recording. Her voice, his laughing about poor Michael from a night I'd caught them on mic. No violence, no shouting, just the truth laid bare for everyone to see. The night before the party, I tested the setup, projector humming, images crisp on the living room wall. Emily walked in, saw a photo of us at our wedding, and smiled, oblivious. "Looks great," she said, kissing my cheek. I nodded, stomach twisting, and said, "It's going to be unforgettable." She didn't know how right I was. The rain tapped the windows, a steady rhythm to my resolve. Tomorrow, they'd face the music, and I'd watch their world crumble, just like they'd shattered mine. The night of the party arrived, a Saturday drenched in Seattle's signature drizzle. The air thick with anticipation I couldn't shake. Our house buzzed with prep. Emily flitting around in a black dress, arranging charcuterie boards, laughing with early guests like she hadn't a care in the world. I moved through it all like a ghost, setting up the projector, tweaking the playlist, every step mechanical. My chest was tight, my pulse a steady thrum, but I kept my face neutral. Friends trickled in, old college buddies, coworkers, neighbors, filling the living room with chatter and clinking glasses. Trevor showed up last, hair slicked back, a forced grin plastered on as he clapped me on the back. "Big night, huh?" he said, voice too loud. "You have no idea," I replied, smiling just enough to keep him guessing. Emily played hostess perfectly, refilling drinks, tossing her head back at bad jokes, her charm dialed up to mask whatever nerve she carried. I caught her glancing at Trevor, quick darts of eyes that lingered too long, and he'd nod back, subtle but sloppy. They thought they were untouchable, that I was still the clueless husband pouring wine while they stole moments behind my back. The slideshow was queued up, my laptop humming on the coffee table, a ticking bomb disguised as nostalgia. I'd spent hours on it, old photos of me and Emily hiking Rainier, Trevor and me at a Mariners game, then the ones they didn't expect, her car outside his apartment, their shadows in a hotel window, a time-stamped shot of them kissing in that dive bar. The audio was the kicker. Her giggle, his low murmur, "He's got no clue," captured on a night I'd parked outside their latest hideout. Dinner passed in a blur, small talk, laughter, the clatter of plates. I barely ate, my stomach a knot, but I kept the conversation flowing, dropping hints to wind them up. "Been a wild year," I said to the group, raising my glass. "Lots of surprises." Emily's smile faltered, just for a second, and Trevor's hand tightened around his beer. "Can't wait for the slideshow," someone chimed in, oblivious. "Michael always kills it." I nodded, catching Emily's eye. "Yeah, this one's special." She looked away, busying herself with a tray, while Trevor coughed into his fist. The room was warm, the rain a soft patter outside, but I felt cold, focused, ready. After dessert, I dimmed the lights. "Time for the main event," I announced, clicking the remote. The projector whirred, splashing the wall with light. First up, me and Emily on our honeymoon, her in a sundress, me sunburned and grinning. S rippled through the crowd. Then us at a barbecue, Trevor photobombed in the back, all laughs. "Classic," someone called out. I let it roll, memories flickering by, lulling them into ease. Emily relaxed into the couch, sipping wine. Trevor leaned against the wall, arms crossed, smirking like he'd won something. Then the shift came. A photo of her car parked at his place, dated a month ago. Murmurs started. Another. Them at the bar, her hand on his leg. The room went quiet, glasses pausing midair. "What's this?" a friend muttered. I didn't answer, just clicked. The hotel shot, blurry but unmistakable, their outlines pressed close. Gas now, heads turning. Emily sat up, wine sloshing, her face draining of color. "Michael, what?" she started, but I hit play on the audio. Her voice filled the silence. "He's so predictable. It's almost sad." Trevor's laugh followed. Poor bastard doesn't suspect a thing. The words echoed, sharp and final. The room erupted, whispers a choked, "Oh my God," someone dropping a fork. Trevor bolted upright, eyes wild. "Turn it off, man, this isn't funny," he barked, stepping forward. I held up a hand, calm as steel. "Sit down, Trev. We're not done." Last slide, a screenshot of their texts. "Meet me tonight, he's out late." Dated 2 weeks ago. I turned to face them, the crowd parting like a sea. 8 years with her, 20 with you, I said, voice steady, loud enough for everyone. And this is what I get. Emily was on her feet, trembling, tears welling. "Michael, please, I can explain, save it." I cut her off, tossing my wedding ring onto the table. It clattered, a hollow sound. Trevor lunged for the laptop, but 2 guys grabbed him, pinning him back. "You're a piece of work," one snarled. Jake, a mutual friend who'd always had my back. The room turned on them, a wave of shock and disgust. Emily sobbed, mascara streaking, clutching at me. "I'm sorry, it was a mistake." I stepped back cold. "Mistakes forgetting an anniversary. This is betrayal." Trevor, red-faced, stammered. "You're blowing this out of proportion, man. It's not what?" I snapped. "Not you screwing my wife." The crowd hissed, someone muttering asshole. I faced them all. "Party's over. You two can leave, or stay, and explain to everyone why you thought this was okay." They didn't move, frozen under 20 pairs of eyes. I walked out, grabbed my coat, and left them to drown in the mess they'd made. The rain hadn't stopped when I stepped out of the house, leaving the wreckage of the party behind me. My coat was thin against the damp chill, but I didn't care. The cold felt cleansing, washing away the suffocating heat of that room. Inside, Emily's sobs and Trevor's stammered excuses faded into a dull hum, drowned out by the patter on the porch roof. I didn't look back. The ring I'd tossed on the table, 8 years of promises, lay there like a dead thing, and I was done carrying its weight. I got in my car, the engine rumbling to life, and drove into the night, the headlights cutting through the mist. I didn't know where I was going, just that I couldn't stay. The next morning, my phone was a war zone. Missed calls from Emily, texts from friends ranging from, "What the hell happened?" to "You okay, man?" Trevor had the nerve to leave a voicemail. "We need to talk. This got out of hand." I deleted it without listening past the first 5 seconds. Out of hand? He made his bed, both of them had, and I wasn't about to tuck them in. I crashed at a motel near the water, the kind with flickering neon signs and lumpy mattresses, staring at the ceiling as the reality sank in. My marriage was over. My best friend was a traitor. But instead of drowning in it, I felt something else, relief, sharp and unexpected. The lies were out, the masks off. I was free to rebuild. Monday, I called a lawyer. No shouting matches, no drawn-out drama, just a clean filing for divorce. Emily didn't contest it. She couldn't, not with the evidence I'd handed over, screenshots, recordings, timestamps. Her lawyer tried to spin some sob story about momentary weakness, but the judge wasn't buying it. The house went on the market, split down the middle, and I let her keep Jasper. He'd always love her more anyway. Friends rallied around me. Jake especially, showing up with takeout and a promise to never let that snake near us again. Word spread fast. Emily and Trevor became pariahs in our circle, their names whispered like a curse. I didn't gloat, didn't need to. The truth had done its work. Trevor's fall was steeper than I'd planned. That waterfront deal he'd bragged about? Turns out, the planner I'd tipped off dug deeper after the party, quietly at my nudge. Shady permits, a backroom payoff. Wasn't hard to unravel once someone cared to look. His firm cut him loose, reputation torched, and last I heard, he'd moved out of state, chasing scraps of what he'd lost. Emily kept her job, barely, but the whispers followed her. Clients pulled away, her team iced her out. She tried calling once, a month later, voice small through the speaker. "I didn't mean for this, Michael. Can we just talk?" I let her finish, then said, "You talked enough with him," and hung up. Closure wasn't her gift to give. I'd taken it for myself. By summer, I moved. A small place near Shilshole Bay, all glass and cedar, with a deck overlooking the Sound. The sale of the old house funded it, a fresh start carved from the ashes. I'd sit out there evenings, sketchpad in hand, drafting designs with the waves crashing below. No more late-night stakeouts, no more playing detective in my own life. Work picked up, new clients, bigger projects, and I threw myself into it, building things that lasted, things I could trust. Friends dropped by, beers in hand, and we'd laugh about dumb stuff, the heaviness lifting bit by bit. I wasn't the guy from the party anymore, the one with the broken marriage and the viral betrayal. I was just Michael again, older, sharper, but whole. Emily sent a letter once, 6 months out, handwritten, shaky. I know I can't fix this, but I'm sorry. I hate who I became. I read it, felt the old ache flare, then tossed it in the trash. Sorry didn't erase the nights I'd lain awake, piecing together her lies. It didn't undo the years I trusted Trevor, only to watch him smirk behind my back. They'd made their choices, and I'd made mine. Consequences weren't my burden to carry. Last I heard, she was living alone in a cramped apartment downtown. No ring, no dog, just the echo of what she'd thrown away. Trevor? Where was he burned through his savings, bouncing between dead-end gigs? I didn't check up, didn't need to. They'd faded, ghosts of a life I'd outgrown. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the water gold, I stood on the deck, a beer in hand. The air smelled of salt and pine, the rain a distant memory. I thought about that night, the party, the slideshow, the way their faces crumpled under the weight of their own mess. It wasn't vengeance that drove me, not really. It was justice, clean and lawful, a line drawn so I could step over it and keep going. They'd lost everything, trust, respect, futures, while I'd gained something better, myself. The waves rolled in, steady and sure, and I smiled, knowing this was the end of their story and the start of mine.